What's up, champs? Welcome to another episode of the Short Shifts Fantasy Hockey Podcast, brought to you by Keeping Karlsson. I'm your host, Jeremy Priscillo, and joining me tonight, my pal and yours, Shams Benamor. Shams, how are you doing tonight, and how are your fantasy teams doing?
Well, hopefully my teams are not as cold as I am right now. What, up 20 degrees Celsius to negative 20. So it went from a snap of negative 40 for a few days to a nice balmy negative 20. So hopefully I get closer to zero sometime soon.
Yeah, that's a cold one. Make sure you stay warm and inside and take care of yourself out there in the great white north of Canada.
I am.
But enough of the chit-chat. Let's get on to the news. First up, I finally got my wish after 2 straight episodes of complaining about Vegas's lack of injury updates. They gave us concrete updates on all 4 of their fantasy-relevant injured players today. Shams, why don't you run us through what the updates are?
So, roundabout way, we got this from a Oilers beat reporter listening to a Vegas reporter on the radio. So, I'll take it any way I can get. So, the news is that Eichel the procedure is on his knee. Remember, it was told to us it was lower body, so he actually got a body part now, and it's out for 4 to 6 weeks. Hill will play one of the upcoming games on the road trip, so coming close. And then Theodore, who is already past his original schedule to come back, needs an additional 3 to 4 weeks. And then Karlsson's likely return will be right after the All-Star break. So basically the things that I take away from this is that Hill is coming close, so we'll be back to that 50-50, and Logan is going to lose his spot. And then we actually have a little bit more of a deadline with the actual return of Eichel. If I remember correctly, that's going to kind of cross into, as I think, Jeremy, you were talking to with the last episode, into the All-Star break. So when you see 4 to 6 weeks, it is a lengthy time, but that's not as much fantasy time that we're going to lose. So those are the big 2 ones that I'm taking away from this.
Good point on the real-time versus fantasy time, both with Theodore and Eichel. The All-Star break's only 2 weeks away, so if Theodore's 3 to 4 weeks out, by the end of the All-Star break, that would be touching into the 3rd week. Same with Eichel, knee surgery 4 to 6 weeks. He already missed a week. I'm not sure if that's going to count towards his 4 to 6. It kind of sounds like 4 to 6 additional, but you're going to definitely not have them for your next 2 fantasy matchups, and hopefully by the matchup after the All-Star break, they're on the ice and talking about a return. Also really nice to see Adin Hill practicing with the team and apparently going to play at least one of the games on the upcoming road trip, which I believe the road trip is a back-to-back Monday and Tuesday. You can fact-check me on that on your own time, but hopefully it's not the same as last time where he came back for a couple shots and immediately got hurt again. Next up, we have 2 good injury updates from the San Jose Sharks. The first one being that Logan Couture is almost ready to return and might play on Saturday this week. The second one is that the Granlund injury that happened last game is not as bad as they originally feared, and he's week to week, but could even be next week, which is very short for week to week. But I know Granlund got dropped in a few leagues. He's kind of one of those guys that you don't hold in an IR slot if you've got a crunch. So be looking to pick up both Couture and Granlund if they're available, because they seem like they're very close to return. Granlund, at least, is a guy I would be targeting after the All-Star break if maybe they hold him out until that. He's an easy pickup during those 5 to 7 days where nobody's playing. Last but not least, we do have a season-ending injury. Jared Spurgeon, the captain of the Minnesota Wild, is out for the season with whatever injury's been bothering him. I think this is more of a real-life impact than a fantasy impact. That's a big blow for a playoff hopeful in Minnesota. On the fantasy side, it means Brock Faber has a lot of runway, both as a power play quarterback and a 30-minute-a-night defenseman, as he's been playing some games. Additionally, I'd keep my eye on Jonas Brodin and Jacob Middleton, especially in banger leagues, just because, they're going to get more ice time. Brodin, I think, has seen like 60% of penalty kill time in recent games. That's a lot of opportunity for blocks. They're probably fringe relevant in, 4-game weeks for the Minnesota Wild. You have any thoughts on the Sharks or the Wild injuries, Shams?
Yeah, I think you hit it right, especially on that Spurgeon injury, is that I think what was happening is that in shower leagues, you saw people dropping Faber when Spurgeon came back because Spurgeon was kind of taking Faber's spot, but now we have that clear spot. And then also we'll keep an eye out for, I think Faber's going to be fine regardless, but there's some rumors and whatnot that the Wild might be looking for a replacement defenseman now that they can actually put Spurgeon on LTIR. So I don't know they'll get someone to maybe the facilities to do the power play 1, but if they pick up a minute muncher, that might lessen the amount of Middleton and Brodin in the long term. But in the near term, just having someone around to eat hits and blocks, they were doing well enough when Spurgeon was around that we could see those minutes climb up for them as well.
As far as a replacement defenseman goes, that's a good point, and one of the names that's kind of been out in trade talks since the beginning of the year is Chris Tanev from Calgary. So if it's someone like that, probably doesn't affect much other than the ice time, or maybe they make a splash and get a power play relevant defenseman, which would be unfortunate for Brock Faber. Now for some smaller injury updates, we have Jacob Markstrom is skating. Dan Vladar started the last game, did really well. Starting tonight against Toronto and the next game against Edmonton. So those are some scarier matchups. I wouldn't be counting on him for more than those 2 games. So that's honestly kind of just bad luck. You're not going to get any juicy matchups out of it. They did say they would be careful with Markstrom, but I expect him back ASAP. Additionally, the Buffalo Sabres are banged up a bit. Dylan Cozens, Mattias Samuelsson, and Jeff Skinner are all day-to-day with upper body injuries. In the meantime, Benson and Middlestat are on the power play, and Benson's back up on line 1. Anything fantasy relevant out of this Buffalo situation for you? It sounds pretty short-term, but could be something.
Yeah, it's really at this point, it's maybe in your deep leagues and you want to take a shot on Benson, but I'm talking to deep leagues because really right now, all he does is a couple of shots. So you could end up with absolutely nothing. But if you're looking for anything, playing with Thompson on the power play and even strength is tempting, but maybe just as a flyer at most.
Even more injury and outjury news. Marty Necas in Carolina is practicing. It will be up to him whether or not he goes on Friday, which in my book is coach speak for he's going to play, because every story you hear about hockey players is they want to play way sooner than they're supposed to. I'd expect him back. Do not know what the Carolina lines will look like. I'll be keeping an eye out on that because of the Friday-Sunday games. Peter Kochetkov is getting better. It is confirmed that his injury was concussion. I had not seen that until today. Freddie Andersen is still not skating, so Kochetkov's going to have that to himself as soon as he gets back. And he's been really good, so I think he's going to play a lot of games down the stretch. The Avs also hope to get Byram and Lehkonen in on the next road trip, so that's good news for both of them. We'll see how fast they come back. Anything on the Canes or Avs updates from you?
I think the big thing is with Lehkonen coming back is that we'll have to see how the lines are, but this could really put a damper on those like tertiary players on the Avs. You know, your Ross Coltons are people are grabbing, and we'll have to see how the power play and the even strike lines up, because right now, like, I think that was kind of the biggest buzz is that Ross Colton was getting the top power play, but I have a feeling that probably the Lehkonen, assuming that they don't like ease him in, we'll see how it goes, is that he'll probably be primed to take that spot away from him.
Yeah, Lehkonen is the big prize here, if you ask me. Last but not least, we have some outjuries to talk about. Why don't you tell us which 3 players are back or coming back very shortly?
So right now we have Norris is basically practicing well and hopefully be back on the ice soon, maybe available for the weekend. And I think this is the big thing is that with them is that, like, right now, I think his name is Riley Gregg. I don't even know his first name, but either way, he's taking the top line, and then Stutzel's taking the second line, and Chartier, I believe, is probably, I'm just going to assume he's French, is centering the third line. And the reason why I'm saying the third line is that Tarasenko got bumped down there. So basically, this is one of those things where even if you're not high on Norris, where he's not had the greatest year this year, it just kind of helps all the other lines as well. So that's something to keep an eye out on. And then secondly, we got Timo Meier actually returning. He's returned the last game. Yesterday they were shut out, so we'll see if these lines change. They haven't played yet. They have Toffoli with Isher and Bratt, and then Meier is on the wing with McLeod and Mercer. And then the nice thing is that Meier's on the top power play. They actually have it stacked. I guess with everyone injured, you can't really do a split power play. It's Luke Hughes, Meier, Hischier, Bratt, and Toffoli. So that's something to keep an eye on. And then lastly, we got Boone Jenner actually coming back from his broken jaw, and he's going to be centering Roslovic and Ventilli. So out of those three, is there anything to come from? A lot of these players are probably already owned and coming off of IRs, but what do you think?
I think it's worth looking to see if Josh Norris is unowned. He was dropped in a few of my leagues and is one of the fringier ones. I actually think they may throw him back up on the first line and throw Ridley Gregg down to the third line. Also, the line shuffle they did was kind of weird, but it's working. They've got 5 goals tonight, I believe, and all 3 of those top 9 lines have points. Meier, good to see him back. Jenner, probably owned, but also good to see him back. With that, we'll take a short break and see you in a few. Welcome back, everyone. We're going to hit you with one snoozer and a bunch of hot streaks to finish off your night. The snoozer we have here is Nick Paul, who we recommended a while back because he was on the first line, playing with some great players up there in Tampa and on the first power play unit. He's still on the first power play unit, but is now no longer on the first line, which means his points have dried up. He's actually had a bunch of minuses in recent games, so his time on ice is down in the 16, 17, 15 range, not 20 plus where he was before. You can safely cut bait on Nick Paul, and I'm not looking to roster him. Would you agree?
Yeah, he was a fringe at best with the top line and the top power play, so with only the power play, we'll see how long that even lasts. That just makes it even simpler to cut bait.
Another hot streak. I believe I mentioned this guy last episode. TJ Oshie. This is no longer a hot streak. This is a pause the pod moment. If TJ Oshie is out there, please go at him. He's been shooting a ton. He's got goals in 3 of the 5 games since returning from injury. He's on that power play and getting a lot of good looks off of it. Honestly, better looks than Ovechkin is. Just check your waiver wire, add TJ Oshie if he's there, and you're going to be happy with his production rest of season. Have you checked your waiver wire, Shams?
Yeah, it was working on these show notes. I took a peek, and sadly, he's already rostered. But the funny thing is that he's with Strome and Pacioretty on even strength, and the team Twitter account actually listed that as the first line. So it just kind of shows just how they think about Strome altogether, and then all 3 of them with Ovechkin is on the top power play. So you got to just pick him up. I'm not sure, you have to be in the most shallow of shallow leagues where you're not interested in him.
Agreed. You have Adam Boqvist next on our hot streaks. I actually am blind to this one. I have not been following him. So what's up with Adam?
So he's actually on a nice run since coming back from injury. In his last 4 games back, he has 4 assists, and 3 of them are power play assists. He doesn't really do much else, but this is kind of the situation where it kind of depends on your league format. So say if you're a person in a categories league with power play points, this could be a person that you pick up and just really helps you in that, assists and power play point situation. He is on the top power play right now. We're not really sure of the status of Werenski. It's been a while to while basically everyone's hurt on that team. So really at this point, if he's with the top power play, they have some offensive strength, and especially with Boone Jenner coming back, that's going to benefit it. So it's just kind of that situation where, depending on your league format and how deep it is, that this could be just kind of a sneaky pickup that just helps back end.
He may be out there in a lot of your leagues too, because Columbus has had some pretty bad schedules the past few weeks. I believe they're done with the stupid 2-game weeks that they've had, so maybe a nice pickup to kind of get you through the next few weeks here. Next up, we have a hot streak from Goal Caulfield. He's scored in 4 straight games. He was actually a sneaky, cold streak for a while that I think we mentioned a few times. He was shooting 5 or 6% when in past years he's been between 12 and 16%. Even with his recent goal run, his shooting percentage is still only 9.2, so there's even more room for that to recover. Just been really hot lately, the power play's really clicking, and a lot of the goals that he's scored have been just straight up shots that beat the goalie. He's got a sniper of a shot.
Yeah, we all know the Canadians are the Canadians, and they're not, going to go to the playoffs, and you're going to have nights like tonight on a back-to-back where they get destroyed. However, the nice thing is they're not spreading out their offense. Their top line is Suzuki with Caulfield, and then Slavkovsky, who's, a really high pedigree prospect. So basically the idea is that with all of them together and on the power play, Caulfield's put in a position to succeed even if they don't have the depth.
Totally. They're very much going to lean on that top line and top power play unit. Another player who's kind of picked it up of lately, or maybe not, we'll have to talk about this one. Tim Stützle had his second multi-point night in his last 3 games today. He had gone really cold for a while, but had 4 assists against San Jose a couple days ago, and a goal and 2 assists today against Montreal in the aforementioned blowout. The downside is he only has 7 shots in his last 5 games, but I'm okay with that. He's still getting power play time. He's passing really well. I'm hoping that he's kind of breaking out of the mini slump he was in and beginning to look more like a 2nd or 3rd round pick.
Yeah, the team is just kind of, the whole team is basically in a funk. So I think that's just kind of more of it. And then sometimes you just kind of have to bet on skills. So even with the team not going to where they thought they were going to be, that we all know that Stützle is a great player and that he's going to be able to make nothing out of, or something out of nothing. And he still has Giroux with him. So I feel like that's just going to be in a position where, even if the team's not doing well, you got a strong player that's going to be able to do something for you.
And to finish us off, you have a goalie in the hot streaks category that may be available in some leagues.
Yeah, it's basically the roll the dice on who in Buffalo is doing well, and it's UPL, Ukko-Pekka, and I believe he has his 3rd start in a row, but either way, his last 2 starts have been shutouts, so even with that kind of setup, if you want to try to do the old 1 goalie in, 1 goalie out, is that until he stumbles, I feel like kind of plays into the coach's hands that you can't just bench a player that has back-to-back shutouts. So this is one of those situations where you might want to pick him up while he's hot, and that's what I've done in the past, and to just be ready to understand that if Levi ends up getting the run, that you can just throw back into the waiver wire, assuming that, you're not in one of those leagues that have only random backups as your FA pool.
Yeah, I definitely think that he's going to get the next start now that he's had 2 straight shutouts. He's started 4 in a row and only given up 4 goals in those 4 games. Won 3 of them, shutouts in 2. His goals saved above average in all 4 of them are really good too. Seems like he is actually earning those low goals against totals, not just lucking into the fact that the team played San Jose and Chicago. Maybe it's a little bit of both, because San Jose and Chicago are bad. If you watch those two play each other a couple days ago, the shootout was like watching Mites on Ice. I'm just going to say, watch that shootout if you have a chance, and it's like watching a Mites on Ice shootout. And with that, that's all we have time for tonight. Thanks for joining us. Be sure to give us a follow at ShortShipsKK, as well as Brian and Elon at Keeping Karlsson. Please use www.gamedaytweets.com to get all the best info from Twitter without having to click through the rest of Twitter. It includes team by team and searchable tweaks by player name. Visit that site and the other great sites we use to research our episodes with at Yahoo, Frozen Tools, ShiftChart.com, Icy Data, and Natural Stat Trick. Our intro and outro music was created by Pat Roach, and John Reed is our digital media producer. Until we see you next time, play smart and keep your shifts short.